what's in the pipeline was the theme here, and Malcolm and Steve have now enlightened us. And of course, I would like to start with a very, well, the easy question, I guess, because we started out giving birth to a new organization, Oil Gas Denmark, and of course now we have to ask, with a local organization and a global organization, how can we help them in their startup? What kind of good advice would you give them?
Well, I think they've done an awful lot of the right things. They've also chosen the right name and avoided calling themselves Gas and Oil Denmark. That would have been an interesting acronym, wouldn't it? But they've done a lot of the right things. I think the most important step is bringing the whole of the supply chain together. I mean, the operating companies and the contractor companies into the one church to talk about the issues which frankly are of concern to everybody. And I am sure that the new organisation is going to find that the quality of that debate is going to be strong, and from that the deliverables that will come from this organisation will equally be strong. So I think they've done the right thing, and I'm delighted to see that they've done it. I can only encourage them with what happened in the UK, and it's been, I think, it sounds like I'm being immodest when I say this, but I think it's been an outstanding success in the UK. There were some people who were very concerned about it. I can remember some operators saying, oh, crumbs, you know, we're going to have people in the supply chain trying to flog us stuff all the time and this sort of nonsense. That didn't happen at all. This is a very responsible industry with a lot of very responsible companies in it who have got a contribution to make. Allow them to make that contribution and you'll be amazed by what happens.
Fantastic.
One of the things that I would mention that you need to include, and the HSE always give us this question, which catches us out occasionally, is include the workforce. You cannot bring safety or any implications in at all unless you've got representation of the workforce, the crew understand what you're trying to do and why you're trying to do it. You know, we've had the unions in OSPRAG, and it's been very, very useful hearing their point of view, especially when we start talking about some of these human factors things. You know, it's a great relief to them when they actually hear operators talking that way, because they've been fighting some of this over the years, and we hope we're making a difference and making a change. So make sure you include the workforce in your teams.
I don't know what the relationship is here on safety representatives offshore. In the UK, the safety representatives are elected by the local workforce. They're not actually union appointees either. They're actually appointed by the workforce. And I think that's a very strong dynamic as well. And we make sure that those appointed workforce representatives are also kept in the loop.
Good, wonderful. That's passed on then. Werner and Martin. Any questions? I don't see any. Good.
Probably starting with Martin. We heard we have a stacking cap for UK wells. Do we know if that's capable of capping wells in Denmark and in other countries within EU before the other stacking caps we heard about from Steve are available?
It is, but it does raise, I mean, Steve raised an interesting question there. What happens if the UK deploys its capping device, even within the UK, but deploys it outside the UK? Where do all the operators, OPEPs, these all emergency pollution plans, where do they stand if they're calling in aid the capping device? So I think what we need is another capping device quite urgently in the Northern European arena. That's what we really need. I was saying to a colleague at the table there, I can remember the debate when we were talking about building our own capping device, and somebody said, well, whilst we're at it, why don't we get them to knock off another one? And probably, with hindsight, that might have been a good idea. We probably should have bought two, and we'd have probably got two for slightly less than not the price of one, but slightly less than the price of two. But at the moment, I think there would be an issue, and I think the UK regulator would probably have an issue with that, because it would put in question operators, OPEPs, that are relying upon that capping device.
Steve, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, in addition to the OSPRAG capping device and the ones which are being planned for us, there actually is a number of capping devices around the world owned by various companies. I know that Shell have got some, I believe Maersk are looking at some of the other drilling contractors. So it's not as if there's just two lying around. And to be honest, if there was a large oil slick heading towards the beaches of Britain from this region, I'm sure we could come to some arrangement.
I've got a question for you, actually, Steve, if I might.
Yes.
You know those 3 capping devices, are any of them deployable from a vessel, or do they all need a rig?
The 7-inch one is deployable from a vessel.
Right.
We took all your lessons on the Osprey and stole them and put them in Taylor's.
Wonderful. Questions from the audience? Good. So now I might be a novice here, so bear with me if this is a stupid question. Steve, you speak a lot about what we do not do for the driller, for example, and generally what we should improve, or training courses, etc. Isn't OGP an organization that could take up to facilitate training courses or stuff like that?
One of the things I didn't actually say was we've generated a new curriculum. It's a curriculum for training. The existing curriculum is good if you're drilling a land well. It's not deep water, it's not high pressure, high temperature, it doesn't involve any barriers. So, you know, there's a whole lot of things that are actually simply not in the curriculum. So we're actually producing that. That's going to our management committee, and we hope to produce that within the next month. So that'll hit the streets. So that'll be a new training curriculum for a new certificated course, which covers all of that. And that's going to be phased in for the training. And also the human factors training is going to have a training course and then an assessment so that we can make sure that people are following that. So there is a lot of work to be done in that area.
And who can join those?
Everyone who's a member of OGP will get that. But what we're actually doing is producing a document which will then go to IADC and IWCF. So anyone who goes for a well-controlled certificate from those 2 accredited bodies will follow that guidance. So it will automatically drop into the system.
Okay. Here comes a lot of other 3-letter abbreviations, right? I mean, there are 3-letter abbreviations, 4- and 5-letter abbreviations, and
What, TLAs?
oh, it's just I don't follow you all the way, but what I do follow is that you have a lot of collaborations, right?
Yeah.
So for both of you, why is that so important?
Oh, I think it's absolutely key to bring forward the quality of the debate. And as we were saying, we have a sort of shared and common destiny here, and it's important that we do collaborate together. That's not to say that collaboration is always easy. And for example, the sharing of incident data is pretty difficult to get going at times. The lawyers and the insurance guys always want to get in the way. So sometimes a collaboration is not easy, and it demands bravery. And we go back to what Greg was talking about before as well. I think it demands leadership in companies too, to ensure that you get that strong collaboration. But if you can get it going, then it's extremely, extremely powerful, both within the industry and across the industry with regulators and the trade unions as well. And provided you've got a shared and common goal, that helps a huge amount. Yes. And in safety, you've got that shared and common goal, so it shouldn't be too difficult to construct it.
No, you shouldn't think so.
Yeah, we've done quite a lot of work with the regulators to make sure that the regulators understand that these shared lessons I've learned are to be used for that, not for a regulator to go in and say, right, tell me about this, I want to find out who did that and when and where. We want to be sharing these lessons to make sure they're used. So the sharing of lessons learned, I hope, will be out next month. We will send out our first safety alert. We actually did a trial just before Christmas for the members of the Wells Expert Committee. We said, right, go back to your own companies and write an alert from some historical event somewhere in your past of your company and bring that to us. Now, before you bring it to us, go to your lawyers and make sure that they're happy that you're putting this into the public domain. Because that's where we all said, oh, the lawyers won't let you do this. The lawyers will have complaints. So we went to the lawyers and we said, we want to do this for OGP. And they said, oh, okay, that's fine. And all that, all that worry about, and that's what we discover, people say, oh, the lawyers won't do it, the lawyers won't do it. But when you actually go to the lawyers, they say, oh, well, okay, fine, just do it. It's all right.
You know some nice lawyers.
Maybe not all lawyers.
I'm a lawyer.
All right. This is for you, Malcolm. When Oil and Gas UK issued recommendations and guidelines, how do you then know that your members actually do follow and implement these guidelines?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. We do try to follow that, and we try to bring pressure to bear if they don't follow it. But of course, at the end of the day, we aren't a regulator. We haven't got any sticks we can hit people with.
No.
It is a question of appealing to their better instincts and their better nature. But actually, again, in the main, we find that that is a sufficient tool to use, actually.
Okay, so I disagree with that. We have got tools to force people to comply. You know, if ConocoPhillips as an operator says you will follow the GIG recommendations and you will do this, we can go and audit these companies. You know, if a company is not doing what we require, we will audit them and say, right, it says in the contract you should do this. You're not doing this. We're either stopping operations or you're going to either do this. So you can use the audit tool as a method, like a stick. You don't want to use the stick too often. You know, I pulled that fast stunt there about the sweeties. But the whole point is that you get the safety behavior that you tolerate. If you tolerate people not holding the handrail, if you tolerate people not doing what they're supposed to be doing, you will get that behavior. And you need it sometimes to just put down a line and say, we are not tolerating this. You have to comply or we're simply not doing business with you. And we've done that to a number of companies. You know, we actually had a dive support vessel that we actually took off contract because we did not believe they could operate safely. And we were simply putting men's lives at risk. So you can do that, but it does take a lot of support from the boss.
Unfortunately, we as a trade association don't have any big contracts that we're placing with these guys that we can take away from them. We're in a slightly different position.
And you're
yes,
in a different
that is
position.
a different position.
Absolutely.
And also, I think it's very interesting that you speak about how they make laws or use a stick in that way, because we talked about that earlier when we had a visit from the government, that nobody likes those kinds of regulations.
No, we're not talking about regulations which force you to do it. You know, we had a no-blame culture, but that means that doesn't mean that there's no consequences. You know, if somebody deliberately goes out and does not comply with what they're supposed to do, we don't just all say, oh, well, it's a no-blame culture, we all just love each other and we'll all carry on happily. You're never going to get anywhere with that. There is a happy medium somewhere between auditing people to make sure they are actually doing what you want. I had a pint of beer with a guy who was the director of BP during the time of Macondo. And I said to him, what keeps you awake at night? And he says, there's only one thing now concerns me. How can I be sure that the people offshore are doing what I want them to do?
Exactly.
Because you can train them, you can give them the skills, but when it comes to the behavior of that particular day, how can you be absolutely certain they will follow procedures, they will not deviate, they'll not make something up? On Macondo, there was certainly a lot of that. They were making it up as they were going along. How can you be sure that's not happening? And that's an operator. That's not even a partner. A partner's even worse. He's 2 steps separated from that. So that's the thing. That is the question. If there's one question to take away, how can you be sure that people are doing what you want offshore and not making it up as they go along? Mm-hmm. I haven't got an answer.
You haven't?
No.
No.
Audit,
no, but we'll keep asking that same question, though, year after year after year.
You need to. You need to. You will get the behavior you tolerate.
Yes. So, questions from the audience? I just have a look if I have an extra question here.
Yeah, Malcolm, a question for you. I noticed after Macondo that Oil and Gas UK was very quickly in responding, and not responding in the public, but also responding in setting down all these work task groups, etc. I was just wondering, looking back at this, what influence did that have on the regulators and the authorities, the fact that you reacted that fast?
It was quite a positive one, actually. Yeah, they were very receptive to it. I must say, I think, and this is going to sound dreadful because people died in that incident, but in the light of the helicopter task group, we had an extremely good example of how that sort of collaboration worked. So it was part of that contact procedure. When we contacted them, I remember saying, look, You remember the helicopter task group, you remember that went, we need to do this again, don't we? And there was a ready acceptance that they were going to do it again, because they had a very good example of it having worked before. And most of the regulators were the same. The CAA, the Civil Aviation Authority, were in the helicopter task group. They weren't in this one, but you still had the HSE. DEC were closely involved in both as well. So the response was extremely positive, Fleming. They came in very quickly, and we really did have that set up and running within weeks. So they were very constructively engaged. And they stayed constructively engaged all the way through. And the trade unions too, as well.
I think you need to understand that the regulators, very early, they realised that they were in the same boat as us. You know, if there's a problem in the industry, they have that problem as well. You know, why did they not inspect? Why did you not sort this out? Is the questions they're getting from their masters. So they were very supportive of us. In fact, they were members of OSPRAG. They were very, they were right in. So, and that worked really well. We could have honest, open conversations with them without fear of any retribution. So it led to some really good conclusions.
Yeah. And I said it was quite a brave space, really, to be in. I mean, everybody was speaking their own minds. Yep. Nobody was in anybody's pockets. Everybody was out and speaking very bluntly and very openly on the issues. And yet in a constructive fashion, and we came to some extremely strong and powerful outcomes.
Yep.
All right. I have one last question. Now, we all work for the same greater issue here, to have safety, you know, be upgraded. And I'm just thinking, the OGP, do you then also give some of your guidelines to non-members?
The guidelines are open on the internet. Anyone can download it from OGP. So it's open. The guidelines that we've got there are completely open to all the members. Some of the recommendations will be for members only. The incident database will be held within OGP membership. And that's one of the things that we've had to promise, to allow people to be open and honest. It has to be within membership. But that, as I've tried to show you, almost includes the whole of the industry. But it does not include the public. So we can share it within the industry, but not open to the public.
Thank you.
We go open. We go open on safety everywhere. So you can get anything that we do on safety, whether or not you're a member. And actually, we seek in the step change in safety databases as well to go open as well, completely open if we can.
That's an objective of mine in a couple of years' time. Once I get the incident database working as a tight club, then I'll put a proposal to open it up and try and make that extra move. But I can't get that to happen just now, or else it won't work. One step at a time.
Wonderful. Thank you both for joining us. Thank you for giving us your thoughts.
Okay. Thank you.